Hi everyone, this is lesson 15. I'm going to demonstrate pages 65 and 66 for you to follow along. To start, the objective of this lesson is to solve real world problems that involve area of different types of figures that have fractional sides. So we're going to again see figures that have mixed numbers as their sides or even as a fraction as their side. And in this assignment, we're going to be doing a little bit of area, and there's also some perimeter problems involved here. So I know perimeter is something, in area is something that you learned in 4th grade, but we are also reviewing it in 5th grade. Okay, let's get started with number 1. It says the length of a flower bed is 4 times as long as its width. If the width is 3/8 meter, what is the area? All right, so I know I'm finding the area. They've given me that information that says the length is 4 times as long as the width. So I have right here, I know my length, putting on the wrong side, my length is the width times 4. So now I'm thinking, all right, have they given us the width? They have. They've given us the width as 3/8 meters. So I'm going to multiply, or I'm just going to sub in here, a multiplication problem. 3/8 times 4. 3/8 again is the width. I'd like you to pause the video and solve that multiplication right there. All right, you should have gotten 3 halves meter. The reason I'm keeping this as a improper fraction, 3/2, is because I still need to find the area. And to find the area, I'm going to have to multiply again. And so that's why I'm keeping my improper fraction, because any mixed number would have to get changed into an improper fraction anyway to multiply. So now we need to find the area. We know area is length times width. So we have those 2 dimensions now. We were already given the width of 3/8. Now we're going to multiply by the length that we just found. So this is what we should be doing to solve that one. I'd like you to pause the video and solve, please. All right, after all your work, you should have gotten 9/16 meters squared. Oopsies. So the area of the flower bed is 9/16 meters squared. The reason I keep pointing here is because I'm looking at the camera and it's reversed. So that's why if I point at the wrong thing, it's because the camera's reversed. So anyway, the flower bed's area is 9/16 meters squared. That one's pretty easy. All right, let's look at number 2. It says, Mrs. Johnson grows herbs in square plots. Her basil plot measures 5/8 yard on each side. Find the total area of the basil plot. So I'm going to go ahead and redraw what they have shown here. We have a larger square with a smaller square inside. So this smaller square in the inside represents the basil plot. The larger square represents her garden. We're just trying to find the area of the basil plot right now. So they've told us that each side of the basil plot is 5/8 yards. So to find the area, we would just need to multiply 5/8 times 5/8 because it's a square. So area, we have 5/8 times 5/8. All right, please pause the video and solve this. After pausing, you should have gotten 25/64 yards squared. Again, if there's ever a time where I get something different than you've gotten, that means maybe your multiplication was incorrect. So go back and look at your multiplication again if you're not getting the same product that I am. Okay, so that was 2A. Let's move on to 2B. It relates to this, so let's keep this information with us. All right, it says Mrs. Johnson puts a fence around the basil. If the fence is 2 feet from the edge of the garden on each side, what is the area of the fence in feet? So This sounds tricky, but if you read carefully, you'll understand what they're telling you to do. So she wants to put a fence around the basil. It's going to be 2 feet from the edge of the garden on each side. So this space that they've given us here, that's 2 feet. That's 2 feet from the edge of the garden to the basil, I guess. So I'm going to think about how I could draw this to help me visualize what I'm doing here. Okay, this shows that, I know it's not a perfect drawing, but it shows that each each side is 2 feet away from the basil. All right, now I'm going to think, they're asking me for the perimeter of the fence. How am I going to find the perimeter of this fence when all I'm given is this information? But wait, we were given some more information in part A. We know that each side of the basil plot is 5/8 of a yard. Okay, so I need to find the perimeter of the fence. So I'm finding this perimeter of the outside. So I'm going to need to, I know this is a square because the basil plot measures 5/8 of a yard on each side. The distance between here, here, and here is all 2 feet, so it's a square. So all sides are the same. Now I need to find one side, and that's going to help me figure out what the perimeter is. So let's just do this side. 2 feet, 5/8 feet yards, and 2 feet altogether would get me the total length. So 2 feet plus 2 feet plus 5/8 of a yard. All right, so I have 2 different units here. I have feet and I have yards. That is not going to, I have to change one of them. So I'm going to look at the question they've asked. What is the perimeter of the fence in feet? Well, I already have feet here. I know that I'm going to need to change this into feet because that's what my final answer is going to be. So first what I'm going to do is convert 5/8 of a yard, 5/8 yard, into feet. So when we did conversions a few months ago, we set it up like this. I'm separating the 5/8 in 1 yard. Okay, it's the same as 5/8 times 1 yard. Now I'm gonna sub how many feet are in 1 yard. We know that there are 3 feet in a yard. So now I have 5/8 times 3 feet. I want you to pause the video and solve that, please. All right, after solving that, you should have gotten 1 7/8 feet. Okay, so this is just the measurement of one side. I need to find the perimeter of the entire, oh, wait, that's not one side, sorry, that's just the 5/8 feet. So I'm gonna go back to this side. I'm gonna sub now, I had 5/8 yard here, now I'm gonna put 1 7/8 feet. Okay, so to find one side, I'm going to need to add 2 feet plus 2 feet plus 1 7/8 feet. So I want you to pause the video now and do that. All right, you should have gotten 5 7/8 feet. So that's one side. This is a square. All of them are the same, and we need to find the perimeter. So what are we going to do here? You could either add 5 7/8 4 times, or you could just multiply it by 4. I think it'd be a little easier just to multiply by 4. Okay, so to find the perimeter, that's what we're going to do. I should probably put P equals. This is the perimeter. Pause the video and solve for this. You should have gotten 23.5 feet. Again, if your multiplication isn't the same as mine, it means you need to go back and check. Remember, this is perimeter, so we don't say feet squared, we don't say feet cubed, because it's just linear measurement around something that's flat. So the perimeter of the fence is 23.5 feet. Alrighty, moving on to page 66. We have a part C to this problem. So we're probably using some of the information from part A and B to solve this part. What is the total area in square feet that the fence encloses? All right, to find area, we need to do length times width. We know that this is a square, and I want to make something clear too about this problem. It's the total area that the fence encloses. So if you think about the square, we're not, in some of the problems we've had, you have like a larger rectangular square, and then you're finding the smaller squares, then you have to subtract the two. We're not doing that. You're just trying to find the entire middle part of the square, how much it encloses its area. So we already know that one of the sides is 5 7/8 feet. So to find the area, we can just multiply 5 7/8 times 5 7/8. All right, please pause the video and solve for that. You should have gotten 34 and 37/64 feet squared. This is kind of a crazy mixed number here, but that is the total area that the fence encloses. All right, moving on to the last problem, number 3. It says Janet bought 5 yards of fabric, 2 1/4 feet wide, to make curtains. She used 1/3 of the fabric to make a long set of curtains, and the rest to make 4 short sets. Find the area of the fabric she used for the long set of curtains. So I'm thinking about the problem they've asked to find the area of the long set of curtains. So I have 2 sets of curtains, long and short. Okay, to me, this seems like a pretty good problem to use a tape diagram with. I know this is not everyone's favorite all of the time, but in my opinion, it's a really good way to visualize how we're solving. So I have a hole, and I know that her hole is 5 yards. Okay, so there I have it. My hole is 5 yards. They also told us that she used 1/3 of it to make long curtains. So I'm going to take this hole. 1/3 of that hole is the long curtains. And then it says she used the rest to make 4 short sets. So that part that's left here, I'm going to divide up into 4 because she's making 4 sets. So this other part represents the short set she's making. All right, let's talk more about what we know, what we need to find out. They want us to find the area of the fabric she used for the long set of curtains. So right now I'm thinking, all right, how am I going to do that? The yards is in yards. They were talking about feet to measure the curtains. So I'm thinking right now I'm going to have to convert that into feet. So I know that 15 yards is the same, 5 yards is the same as 15 feet. Okay, now I want to find what the long part is. So I am taking, remember this is 1/3 of the hole. Well, my hole is 15 feet, so to find the long, I'm doing 1/3 of 15, which is equal to 5 feet. Okay, now we know that information so far, but they're asking for the area. So to find the area, we need to do length times width. So we have just found 5 feet as the length. Now we need to look back into the problem and find out what the width is. And I'm seeing here it says 2 1/4 feet wide to make the curtains. So now I know my length is 5 feet. My width is 2 1/4 feet. So to find that, I'm going to multiply the 2 together. I'd like you to pause the video and do that on your own. You should have gotten 11 and 1/4 feet squared. So the area that of the fabric that she used to make the long curtains is 11 and 1/4 feet squared. Alrighty, moving on to the last problem, part B. And remember, if a problem has A, B, and C, those are probably going to relate to each other. So if you get A incorrect, it's going to affect the way you're able to solve for B and C. So that's something important to remember when you guys are working on these multi-step problems, because you're going to do all this work, but if you got the first part right or wrong, then you're going to get the other parts incorrect too, and that's no fun. All right, they want us to find the area of the fabric that she used for each of the short sets. So I already know that the hole is 15 feet. And we found that 5 feet were used for the long curtain. So I have my hole. I'm going to take away that one part that represented the long curtains, and that's 5 feet. So I'm going to subtract 15 feet by 5 feet, which is 10 feet. That represents the amount of feet that were used for the short curtains. Okay, so now we need to find the area of the fabric that she used for each of the short sets. So, I didn't keep my tape diagram. In my tape diagram, I had sectioned off the part for the short curtains, and there were 4 parts. I need to find just one of those. So if I'm thinking again about I'm going to just redraw this really quick. All right, this part over here represents the short sheets. I just found out from here that this represents 10 feet because this was 5 feet. The whole thing was 15 feet. This is 10 feet. To find out what each of these is, this is one of 4 parts. So it's 1/4 of 10. So I can go and do some multiplication to figure out what one of them is for the length. So I'm finding 1/4 of 10. So I want you to go ahead and remember we're finding the length here. Please solve for this. Pause the video. All right, you should have gotten 2.5 feet. Now that is just the length. We need to go back and figure out the width. Well, we don't have to figure it out. They actually tell it to us. It's the same as before, 2 1/4 feet wide to make the curtain. So to find the area of this one, I'm going to go ahead and multiply this length by the width that they've given us in the problem. So we end up with 2.5 times 2 1/4. Please pause the video and solve that. All right, you should have gotten 5 5/8 feet squared. So to answer this one, the area of each set of short curtains is 5 5/8 feet squared. All right, that is all for this lesson. You guys are going to do page 68.